it is a cool afternoon here in South Georgia, but the sun's up. There's a quarry in the background, and when the wind blows from that direction, it sounds like the backup beepers and the big dump trucks and the loaders and the roar. You can hear all that. Sounds like it's coming at us, but it has been windy. Me and this magnolia tree have been like holding on to each other, trying to weather the wind. We had a good little bit of rain came in this morning early, so me and the baby, we've been staying at the cabin about a week. And I used to hunt a lot in the rain, but I was like, no, 47 degrees and raining, I think me and the baby will stay in the cabin. Once the sun came up, she wasn't going to put up with that junk, and she wanted to go out there and get in it. So she's out there jacking around in the pond, cool enough the cottonmouths are behaving themselves. So then I'd have to dry her off, and she'd come in, and so I got to smell wet dog. Ain't nothing like smelling wet dog. But the video today, I was thinking about it this morning when I was in the cabin. We got few things hanging up on the walls, and I got up here in the tree and got to thinking about it more and more and more. And a lot of us out there in different professions, and again, I always paint a really broad, picture. It isn't just, first responders or military. That's my background, but there's plenty of people out there who have jobs that they take what I call unnecessary risk. I think some of it is, you get caught up in the moment. It's kind of wired. That's what I'm supposed to do. And as you age, and I've written this and done a video on it. Some people get that, what I call the Arlington mentality. Is that, hey, I'm going to end up at Arlington. It just is what it is. And when I was much younger, I kind of had that mentality, that I was like, well, it's the risk of the job, and if that's what happens, that's what happens, and I'm good with it. Somehow I made it. I didn't really ever think I would make it to the other side, this side, the retirement side, and I made it. And I look back over some of the stupid junk that I did, and for what? Yeah, that's pretty strong, I know, but it really is. I look over it and I go, man, I was really caught up in the moment. I could sit here for hours and tell you about some of the stuff that I did. And people are like, man, you don't have to do that. We'll figure it out. It'll work. No, I got it, and there's a reason I made it. And as I've aged, I've started to look back on that. I don't have regrets. I'm glad I did what I did. But I think part of our job is us that make it to the other side, is to mentor the younger people. And, just kind of tell them to dial it back. So there's a young man who I've known him since he was a little booger eater. And he does actually watch the videos, which is pretty entertaining to me. I don't really understand why he watches them, but he does. And he works for the electric company. And when a storm, and in the South, there's always a damn storm, a hurricane, some junk coming through here, blowing trees up, knocking electric poles down. Anytime one starts brewing, I call him or text him. And I said, listen to me. All they're going to do is put a plaque on the wall. That's it. I get it. If you got to restore power to fire up some life support machine or whatever, yeah, you got to do what you got to do. But so some fool can charge his iPhone? Yeah, I don't think so. And I stay on it, and that's what us guys that made it to the other side, or gals, are supposed to do, is to be that little voice of wisdom. And wisdom doesn't come from sitting in a cubicle in a perfect life. Wisdom comes from being lucky, getting by the skin of your teeth, dodging a full bullet, a few bullets. But recently, the oldest boy and I were cleaning up in our project in Missouri. We were above the garage, and on a shelf was this plaque. And I didn't know what it was. And I got it down. I dusted it off. He come over there and he said, "What's that?" And I said, "That's what Grandpa got for working 32 years at one place." And he said, "They give you a piece of wood with some engraving on it?" And I said, "Pretty much." And I said, "I actually gave him a cheap watch." And he said, "And that's it." I said, "And that's it." You know, but I would rather see that plaque than a plaque that, you know, says that blah, blah, blah on this day, that plaque. There are risks with every job. And when we go into it, we know that, or at least we should. And I've talked about that in other videos and written about it. But there are times that we take unnecessary risk because we get caught up in the moment. And I think it's because we want to be that guy. You know, we want to be remembered as that. That you're fearless. And, you know, I say it all the time. Or maybe not on the video. I'm confident I'm about 3/4 woman and 1/4 man. And probably that's why my marriage works, because my wife, she's probably 3/4 man and 1/4 woman. Because she's a lot meaner than me. You know, you want to be remembered as that guy. But at the end of the day, you're going to have a plaque on somebody's wall or whatever. And your family's going to want you there. And you weren't there. Now again, if you had to do what you got to do, yeah, I get that. And you need to do that. That's why you popped that oath. But if you don't have to, don't take unnecessary risk. You know, go for the plaque, the cheap watch. Is it as cool as the other option? No, it's not as cool. But your family would think it's a lot cooler if they got a cheap watch and a plaque. That's the video. I mean, it really is. I hope that my little electric company guy is listening. I get where he comes from. I've seen him out at night like a wild snake that's on fire. I mean, just getting it as hard as he can, because that's just the way he's wired. And he's not going to let somebody else do his job. And he's not going to put his guys, he's got a crew. He's not going to put his guys at risk. He's going to take that risk. And I get that. But what's the end result? Somebody can charge your iPhone? No. And it doesn't matter the profession. It could be farming. It could be these boys over here in a rock quarry. Every profession has some risk, you know. And my wife always says it. She's in the business, in the medical business. People get hurt because they get in a hurry. They don't slow it down just a smidge. They don't put on the right protective, gear. And we are all guilty of that. And dial it down a notch and think about that family at home that would rather see the 32-year plaque than some other plaque or flag on the mantle and all that junk. That's what I got. I'm gonna buzz you around. I ain't got much longer. I got to get down. I got to get my run in, and it's cool enough that the baby's going to go with me. And then I'm actually going to go to Civilization today because I got to teach karate tonight. And the really cool part about today is there's a Verizon outage, and our phones aren't working. So we are completely shut down. I think that's kind of cool. I bet there's a bunch of people that can't get on their social media and they're losing their minds. But I ain't seen nothing all day. I mean, I've been up here about 3 hours. But let me buzz you around. Well, I'm tucked in this magnolia here. As you can see, we thinned these pines last year. Kind of a hot mess. My running trail actually goes right up through there. Goes around back that way. And way up there, you can see some daylight through them pines. That's a field up there. That's kind of my last stretch. But we call this place Double Trouble. That's a video for another day. And then we got a little creek down here. And then you can hear that quarry. So who am I today? I'm a guy that's still smelling that wet dog. And some of you that got babies, you probably appreciate a wet dog smell. And they smell even better when they've been in a pond. And that may be a little hard for some people to digest, but I do like an all-natural smelling wet dog. Man, I'm a guy that's like reflecting today about how did I make it to the other side. You know, somebody's got a plan. I heard it in a country song the other day. If you want to hear God laugh, just tell him you got a plan. And that's good words in a country song. But I hope the video works for some of you out there. I hope that some of you, it doesn't matter the profession. It really doesn't. You could be a mechanic and you're doing something under a car and you know, you're down underneath it and you're like, I need to put them jack stands up. And you're like, nah, it'll be all right. Nah, it won't be all right. It really won't. I mean, I say it in trauma work all the time. If you can dodge a bullet, and I don't mean a physical bullet, I mean a situation that you know is going to squirrel you up pretty bad, dodge it. You ain't got to take the whole world on. And it applies in the other thing, you know, is if you've got to take that risk, and that's part of that oath, and you got to do what you got to do, yeah, you got to do it. It is what it is. But if you don't have to, then why do it? You know? I mean, at the end of the day, your family is going to be very thankful that you thought it out and you made good choices. And, you know, some of the crap that I still do today, I mean, for some of you, you may be like, that's crazy. But I do a lot of safety, a lot of ropes, ropes and harnesses and knots. And so with that being said, y'all have a great day. And I got about 30 minutes. And I'm pretty confident that I just saw Dorothy. I think that was that chick in The Wizard of Oz. I think I just saw her fly by. Y'all take care.